Please welcome Priska and Alan Gamble to talk to us about the Baha'i Faith.
Good morning. And thank you for your very warm welcome, Anne and the rest of the family. The music, Anita, it brought tears to my eye. Yeah, the Primera Spring, just so beautiful and meditative. You play very well, so thank you. So, Anita gave us such a nice welcome, and everything that she said is true. And so we need not repeat. And thank you for all the sharings from Baha'u'llah's writings too that you made a part of your service this morning. And we are here because of that same family spirit. It's conversations in relationships. So if you do not have relationships, it's very difficult to have conversations. So we are here at your church, and because of the conversations that you are inviting us to share with you. And so how we structured that, we are wondering how do we do that? There is so much in the Baha'i Faith, and it's just an introduction. So we wanted to talk in terms of what we want to talk about. Where did that start? Who is really the important players, so to speak, and why? What's the reason behind that? So with the what, I was trying to conceptualize how a new religion comes around. And according to Baha'u'llah, we have a covenant with God. Humankind has a covenant with God because we are God's creations. And the moment that God realizes, and that's his moment, whenever that is, he realizes that humanity is going astray. He sends whosoever he wants with the teachings, with the revelations for the age it is called. Baha'is believe that the age of humanity, which is called the Baha'i era, is the new age right now for the religion of God, with the teachings promoted by Baha'u'llah. It does not discount the other religions. It does not discount Christianity or Muslim or Hinduism, and we will expand on that a little bit more. So when there's a new teaching or anything in the family, there's a buzz. Last week, in preparing for Me the Other film, MTO, I was speaking with a lady who was helping us coordinate, and she talked about the new orchard downtown, and with that exciting tone. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but it's a new orchard where things will be planted by the community, and when at the meetings for that, and we were all interested in trying to be part of that, and just a little bit of a buzz created. And so what's the buzz that we have here, in this church? What's the buzz in our homes? What's the buzz in the community? What's the buzz nationwide? For us today, the buzz is the Baha'i Faith. So Alan has something to share too.
Yeah, just a couple words, because Priska had mainly prepared this outline. I said, where did you come up with this buzz? But I think it was maybe subconscious with, we were trying to, in efforts to promote this film, Me the Other, we tried to create, want to buzz, get a little excitement going. And it was last week, Jesus Christ Superstar, the newer version that was on NBC. I think there's a line in there, isn't there? What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. What's the buzz? I said, maybe there were some subconscious things there. But as Priska said, there was, and about, one in around 1840s, there was, around the world, there was this huge buzz and an sense of expectancy that something was about to happen. There was things related to William Miller. They kind of went back into the Old Testament and sensed, it just seems like a lot of prophecies point to this year, 1843, 1844. And so that was, Baha'is believe that, some significant things did change then, but people weren't necessarily expecting it, coming in a way just as Jesus did, maybe in a different way. And then there was another kind of a buzz around 106 years ago now, in April of 1912. The son of the prophet, founder of the Baha'i faith, we have this picture here, Abdul Baha. At the invitation of many peace societies, this is, kind of leading up to World War I, and there was a sense of, how do we avoid engagement in this, just detrimental war that seems to be ravaging around Europe. So Abdul Baha came to the United States, and for the period of about 8 months, spoke in numerous churches, more often in Unitarian and Universalist churches almost than anywhere else, but across the whole country, from New York, San Francisco, Chicago, fourth annual convention of NAACP, and just a huge number of places, met people like Carnegie and others. So there was a real sense, and a lot of those things were, all of his talks were given in this, summarized in this Promulgation of Universal Peace. And we kind of look through that and sense, wow, there's a lot. But as Priska said, this idea that Baha'is believe that in 1844, the beginning, Baha'is trace this, at the beginning of the Baha'i faith, there's kind of two central figures, that the end of one era or the end of one age, which we would call the prophetic age, ended, and the year of the cycle of fulfillment, or what we'd call the Baha'i era, has begun. So I want to mention a little bit about where.
So we talk about Baha'u'llah, and he's the main figure of the faith. There are three central figures according to Baha'i teachings. So there's Baha'u'llah, and there's Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah. Prior to Baha'u'llah, though, there's the Bab. And the Bab means the gate, like the forerunner. Like John the Baptist was a forerunner to Jesus Christ, and the Bab is equated to that. And the Bab started his ministry really in 1844. So there was the Bab, and Baha'u'llah was, the Bab's religion was the Babi religion, and he was persecuted. And the Bab was martyred. I'm giving you a lot of things right in a little nutshell here. But the Bab was martyred by, let's see, was it 750 or 707? Why does it take so many people to kill one man? 750 bullets. And he was martyred because of that new religion. And so that was one of the buzzes that Alan was talking about. Baha'u'llah, who was a follower of the Babi religion, Baha'u'llah was the son of a wealthy man, and he was the father was part of the government of Iran then, and they were expecting Baha'u'llah, who was a very precocious child. There was something unusual about him, and so the court was expecting Baha'u'llah to take on the position of his father after his father left the court, saying that Baha'u'llah, you are well spoken, and you're a son of a wealthy man, and why aren't you part of the leader? And Baha'u'llah, as a young person, felt that wasn't his calling. He knew, even if people did not understand. And so he was called the father of the poor, because all he was doing was action, like Anne said. He himself talked about, let deeds, not words, be your adorning. So let the action, and many of us, all of us are guilty of that, do more talking than acting. And so Baha'u'llah was not one of talking only, but of action. And he was known as the father of the poor because he would just really take care of poor people, giving money, although he talked against mendicancy, which is begging, that people should not be begging, that everybody should have a skill, and every skill should be rooted in one's ability to have a profession, and that your profession should be noble regardless of what you do. There should be integrity in it. And when Anne talked, I guess I'm digressing a little bit and going a little personal. And, I started by saying that conversations begin with family, and you're a family. And And, I sense that, people are people. And so when we talk about profession, I'm a school psychologist and I do my work with a lot of integrity. I believe in what I do. And I'm having a little bit of a hard time at work right now, So when she talked about sorrows, I'm not necessarily sorrowful, just tests. And Baha'u'llah talks about the tests of life that everybody has to go through. And the outcome is, how do you respond to the tests of life? So anyway, people in Baha'u'llah's time and even now go through a lot of tests. And part of it was poverty. And like I said, Baha'u'llah was known as the father of the poor, and he was born in that Tehran, that part of Iran, where a lot of injustice was happening, which he calls the cradle of the faith, because that's where, it's a nascent. Baha'u'llah in his later days has written much about Iran and the unfortunate outcome that will happen to Iran because of its persecution of its people and because of their beliefs. And we see that even now. I'm digressing a little bit. Is it 10 years right now? 10 years ago, 7 leaders of the Baha'i faith in Iran were imprisoned because of their religion, because of teaching the faith in their homes. And so they've been imprisoned for all these years, and the Iranian government would have nothing to do with their release through a series of actions, even with our own U.S. government sanctioning certain things. The big news this year is that they've been all released, all. So it's really a big thing. And, if you're a Baha'i in Iran, you could not be admitted into higher institutions. So just lots of persecution. So with Iran being the cradle of the faith, Baha'u'llah has prophesied that this is a country that will suffer because it has not really acknowledged the truth of its nascent beings, even Baha'u'llah himself. So that's an important thing to know, that that's the origin of the faith in Iran, known then as Persia. And you know that there's still a lot of suffering and injustice happening there, even now. So that takes us to...
I think one of the things, the good thing that has come from all of this religious persecution of the Baha'is in modern-day Iran is that from the beginning of that revolution, 1978-79, that Baha'is, a lot of them were forced to flee. You're either going to get killed, your business is shut down, you can't go to school. So the people that helped us, both Priska and I had learned about or heard of the Baha'i faith, but I think we were just sort of stubborn. You get sort of stuck in a rut, involved with Catholic, Methodist, Presbyterian churches, and you can become comfortable. And I remember something in the Peace Corps that one of my friends from Albion College had said, that God is always calling us into areas where we're feeling uncomfortable. And that if we're feeling comfortable, that's sort of a sign that we're not being obedient. So it always sort of stuck with me, and I think we needed some teachers and some guides and some people that would continually invite. Baha'is call these things firesides, come over, we'll explain a little thing. And they became such friends. He had written several books, very thick books like this, and kept asking, he said, did you read the book? Did you read the book? And I said, no. And eventually you just start to feel like, all right, I'm just going to read the book. And it just seemed like, I think I was always turned off to prophecy, because I always felt like this is a way of scaring people into believing a right way, and if you don't believe the right way, then you're going to be, you're not going to be taken up and left behind and all that series. And so I think that was, it just seemed like pieces started to fit together. And so it was about prophecies, but it was, here's how Jesus fulfilled prophecies in the Old Testament, and here's some things that were sort of unfulfilled. And so a lot of things, and not just from the Christian writings or Hebrew There was things from Islamic scriptures from India. A lot of puzzle pieces just started to fit together, so that was helpful. As Priska's mentioned, kind of the three central figures, two of them we have banners up because we're celebrating both last year in 1817, well, in 2017, and this coming year, the births of the two main principal figures. The Bab is the forerunner, kind of like a John the Baptist figure. His name actually was Sayyid Ali Muhammad. He took on the title of the Bab, which in Persian or Arabic means the gate, similar to how John the Baptist was the forerunner and preparing the way of Jesus. And then, as Priska said, he had a 6-year ministry from about 1844 to 1850 when he was killed. A few years later, Baha'u'llah took up the mantle, but there was just a lot of persecution of the followers of them, and they eventually proclaimed in 1863. And just interesting when you start to look at dates, about slavery and about women's emancipation and everything, that he was Baha'u'llah, the light or the glory of God. And it's always fascinating to know how important that the image and the symbol of light and glory is, among the Christian faith and especially among Unitarian Universalists. So, there's a little bit we wanted to mention about names and expectations. That if we look back, you recognize with the Jewish people, when Jesus first came, there was this sense that we're under Roman oppression and we're looking for a Messiah. But we had certain things that, qualifications. And I think the expectation was he is going to free us from Roman oppression and his name is going to be Emmanuel. So we knew that from Isaiah and all these prophecies here. It's coming with the name of Jesus. Where'd you come up with that name? And you take on the title of the Christ. But similarly, if you look in the New Testament, Old Testament, what is this Baha'u'llah, the Bab? These are foreign names. Well, they are in Arabic, but when we translate them to English, and if we were reading maybe a Bible that's translated into Persian Arabic, there would be a lot about Baha and Allah. And so we put those things together and we say, okay, there's a lot of things about the glory of the Lord shall be revealed and the glory of God. So there's kind of all those things that are hidden in there. Do you want to mention about names, Persian discussion?
Yes.
MTO thing.
Yesterday after the film, a group of us ended up at the coffee shop just to continue the conversation because people wanted to talk more. And as Anne told you, it was me, the other. It's how people perceive themselves and see others as other, and it's not just one belonging. So anyway, part of the discussion was about names and trying to think of where is that otherness coming from and so forth. And not that it was resolved, but one profound response was somebody said, is it justice? And I know Universalists, you really stand for a lot of justice kinds of things. And so there's a whole discussion around names and how names are portrayed and what the significance of names and how people are turned off from certain names and so forth. So, just in a nutshell here, oftentimes the name is a barrier to us investigating further. I know Alan said earlier on that, we're caught in a rut. And I don't really like to say the word rot. I mean, it's habit, and you become comfortable where you are, like he says, And for me personally, the very first time I heard the name Baha'u'llah, I was a teenager in Dominica, and it was being broadcasted on the radio. On Sundays, they would have the radio announce things that are happening and so forth. And so they had this little song, Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah. And I was a Roman Catholic, Catholic church, and I'm saying, there's always somebody they come in with, there's always, really, really, really. That was my response. I still remember that clearly. And I think that was out of ignorance, I have to say that, because I did not take a moment to really find out, well, what is that? My first response was, where are they coming with all these names? Not investigating, not trying. I think that's ignorance. And so I remember this and do not want to fall in that trap anymore. So the message here is let not the names, deter us. There in the United States, Xavier. How do you say that word? Xavier. Okay. I've heard it said Xavier. Xavier. And it's a French word. So, there is a student, and I would say, can we have Xavier, and Xavier, oh, you mean Xavier, So when I met with the student said, I said, do you know the significance of your name? He said, yeah, I know it's French. And how should I refer to your name? Should I call you Xavier or should I say Xavier? And he said, call me whatever, but he prefers Xavier. And I said, yeah, it's French, So so he says, other people, he just accepts how they call him, but not really, the real way that it should be pronounced. And that's a sense of injustice at some level. Wouldn't you agree? I would think so, because if he prefers to be called how it is supposed to be, what suppose, and then we can get into this philosophical issue, what is suppose, and who coined this, etc., etc. But the whole premise of this is the names that we can strive to not let things bar our visions and put veils between us and other people. So the reason for all of that, as I started at the beginning, saying that, God in all his love for humanity will send teachers of different names to teach us what we need for the age. And so in the Baha'i faith, there are principles that are to be expounded in this era. According to Baha'i teachings, the Baha'i faith should endure for 1,000, 2,000 years or more, just like Jesus Christ well, Islam wasn't as much, but Islam is still here, but according to the teachings of the reign or the duration of that revelation. But anyway, for Baha'i faith, it's 1,000 to 2,000 years, after which God will send whoever he wants for the teaching, with the teaching for the age. And the teachings for the age are based on principles of the equality of men and women, that both men and women are equal. And we can go into that at great lengths, in your relationships at home, that you are equal in the workplace, there is that equality of man and woman. The elimination of all types of prejudices. It doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot have your thoughts about certain things, but to be discriminatory or to treat another person inhumanely because of what they say or who they are is prejudice. So elimination of all types of prejudices, whether it's race, religion, names, all types of prejudices. It's one of the premises or the principles of the Baha'i faith. Universal education for all, not only girls. And in the United States, and in the North, really, we can say that, people are comfortable in terms of, well, we have recognized that. But you go into other countries and you see that men and women are not yet treated equally. And you find that there's not that necessary harmony that we're talking about. And one of the other areas is, and even that not girls aren't as educated as boys. They're not allowed into educational institutions or spaces or to give lectures. So it's different here in the United States and more in the northern, northern continent. Let's see, harmony of science and religion. That everything, it's very interesting because, I get to think and reflect about these things, and I'm saying, okay, quantum physics, where do we go with that, You can see how science is expanding in all facets, and it's part of the exigencies of the time that that if you take time to look, there's a special potency in this era that things are happening. It's very an explosive age of technology and everything, if one takes their time to look. Not only in the tangibles, but also in the emotionals. You know, how people greet. You have us here speaking about the Baha'i faith. Isn't that's wonderful? I would think so. The exigencies of the time forces one to see the changes that are happening in the world. And so when we say science and religion are attached or they are harmonized, it really means that things can be explained, many things can be explained scientifically, whereas before there couldn't be an explanation. Or if it can't be explained scientifically, then it's regarded as superstitious. Superstition is not real, and that's really the premise of the harmony of science and religion. So those are some of the principles that are being expounded in the Baha'i faith. So the reason for all of that, the underlying reason, is the transformation of humanity. Remember, God sends whoever he wants. He wants humanity to be transformed. We are ever evolving people. If you can believe it in your heart, I totally believe that. I see it in myself, you know. You can take it at an individual level. I see it in myself. I see it in people. We're not quite there yet. And we're not expected to be there yet, but we should move quickly to where we're supposed to be. And so Alan can read one of the,
This is from the preface to the Reciting the Verses of God. One of the things that Baha'is are encouraged to do is recite the verses of God every morning and every evening. The purpose of the faith of Baha'u'llah is transformation. Baha'u'llah has appeared in the world to transform the characters of men or people, thereby build a divine civilization. And then he continues, explaining the transformation is the acquisition of spiritual and moral character, which is the outcome of obedience to divine law and principles. By reciting the verses of God, we learn or are reminded of what is spiritual and moral. Second, we learned the words themselves have a mysterious effect upon our souls and impressing on our hearts a pattern of spirituality. So as we do with reading the words of Jesus and Christianity, Baha'is basically believe in this principle of progressive revelation, that to make any distinguishing between the prophets that have been sent by God, whether they be Moses or Jesus Christ or the Buddha or Krishna or Baha'u'llah, all of them have been sent by God and revealed words that are special and holy. So Baha'is, specifically focus on the words of Baha'u'llah, but not to the exclusion of other faiths. Mm-hmm. Do you want to say anything?
That's an important distinction. So Baha'is believe in all of the prophets that God has sent, and the thinking is that the Baha'i faith is for this era because of all of the prophets are regarded as physicians. Baha'is believe that the problems with the world, according to Baha'u'llah's teaching, is because people have moved away from who they are. That people are no longer embracing their spiritual heritage, so to speak, as children of God. We see differences, and there are differences, of course, but then we act upon those differences in negative ways that hurt each other, instead of embracing who each person is. So what Alan has just read talks about, it's so profound that, you might not have caught everything in it, but there is so much in that little bit. The fact that the ways of operationalizing, how do we put into practice the deeds? All of the writings are there, all of the words, so many words. The Baha'u'llah has written hundreds of volumes. There were scribes just writing, they couldn't keep up with him. There are hundreds of volumes of writing. So we don't have a Bible per se. There is gleanings from the writing of Baha'u'llah. I really like this book a lot. I've read it and underlined it and marked it and so forth. So there's not a Bible, there are just hundreds of volumes on different topics. And some of the topics are eclectic, you know. And what Alan just read about Baha'u'llah saying, make no distinctions with the prophets. Who are we to make a distinction between a prophet that this one is better than that one and so forth? This is not our place. So all of this is in that too. But the reason for the transformation of humanity is so that we can act in accordance with the laws and principles of God, meaning treat each other the way you want to be treated. And Jesus Christ has said that, and all of them have said that. The question is, how do you do that? It is really, really hard. I never thought it was so hard, you know, really. You know, the more I read about the Baha'i Faith, the more I realize how sometimes difficult it is to be a nice human being sometimes. You know, really. You know, because you just want to, you just want to tell people off sometimes, you know. No, really. And I have to, you know, I have to say, oh my goodness, you're Baha'i. Okay, how do you do that? How do you say it? How do you? Because, and then you find yourself puzzled, because Baha'u'llah will say things like, be careful lest you offend any heart. On the other hand, he says, do not treat a tyrant smoothly, because then that's hypocrisy. So it's a constant balance, like a butterfly, you know. So it causes you to be vigilant, you know, vigilant in your heart, to introspect all the time. It really forces you into a life of the Spirit. And one of the ways to embrace that and to internalize that is, Baha'u'llah says the three things you need to do. Read the writings, whether it's Baha'i writing or Jesus' writing, read the writings morning and evening. I have to say, I do not do it every evening. I just, you know, we just get really busy, and then you realize, then you start into a discipline and you do it, and you say, that's the reason why, you know, the things that you come up with. So read the writings morning and evening. Not only read them, reflect upon them. Think about what they might mean to you in your heart, not necessarily what somebody else tells you. And it's one of the reasons that the Baha'i Faith does not necessarily have a clergy, per se. The Baha'i Faith believes that this is an age of independence. Remember, we talked about universal education, that everybody needs to be educated. And many people are more educated than the past right now, right? Many more college people. We are expected to read independently, investigate, and come to our conclusions, not because of what your parents said or what a friend says. Reflect upon it for yourself, and what does that mean? And if you're not sure what it means, get into study circles. We have study circles sometimes, and we don't do that religiously. We should. We are in a world where the material sometimes interfere with the spiritual, because it's interesting, you know. Baha'u'llah says you have to treat your work as worship. Work should be treated as worship. And you know what you do in church about worship. So you know, everything about worship should be, so you treat people in your work with dignity, you know, whatever you do with worship that you're supposed to do with your work, that's how you treat it. And so you have this kind of spiritual and secular going at the same time, so sometimes where is the time? And you get that conflict. So you're supposed to read morning and evening. You're supposed to reflect upon what you read. And then the most important is to act upon your reflections. Action is most important to Baha'u'llah. Action, not all the words. So there's something you have.
So we need kind of some helpers, maybe 4 volunteers. We've got 4 passages similar to this, the theme that Ann had mentioned about deeds. So they all focus on that. So we'll just volunteer. They're just short.
A volunteer to read? It's okay, you don't be timid.
Now, you want me to read this?
Yeah, just
Number 5 is, I see. Thereby I say unto thee, of all men, the most negligent is he that disputeth idly and seeketh to advance himself over his brother. Say, O brethren, the deeds
These are words called the hidden words of Baha'u'llah.
O son of being, bring thyself to account each day ere thou art summoned to a reckoning, for death, unheralded, shall come upon thee, and thou shalt be called to give account for thy deeds.
Thanks.
O children of men, know ye not why we created you all from the same dust? That no one should exalt himself over the other. Ponder at all times in your hearts how ye were created. Since we have created you all from one same substance, it is incumbent on you to be even as one soul, to walk with the same feet, eat with the same mouth, and dwell in the same land, that from your inmost being, by your deeds and actions, the signs of oneness and the essence of detachment may be made manifest. Such is my counsel to you, O concourse of light. Heed ye this counsel, that ye may obtain the fruit of holiness from the tree of wondrous glory.
So beautiful.
I think we better grab things.
Thank you. This is so beautiful. You read so beautifully, all of you. And I especially like that one, that death unheralded. And I don't want to belabor the point, but one of the director of the film, Me the Other, yesterday, when he had the cast with him, he had his own story. And one of the story was how suicidal he was. And whatever happened, he had seen his body, the near-death vision, and he was on the lap of somebody on high, I haven't necessarily have this vision, but I've read about it. And we have to bring ourselves to account each day, not necessarily go to a priest to, quote, confess your sins, but introspect. Get inside yourself and why did I look at that person this way? Why did I respond with such harshness to that one? Think about that, reflect, bring yourself to account each day. Ere thou art summoned to a reckoning, because death unheralded. You never know when death arises. So that's the essence of this.
We're mindful of the time. I'm sorry that we kind of went over, but if we can just finish with that, I think we can cut our songs.
We were finished with this here. We had one reflection song, but we
We'll save our song till next time. This is,
Yes.
we'll just alternate on the verses of this last and wrap it up. This is called The Counsels of the Lord. Act in accordance with the counsels of the Lord, that is, rise up in such wise and with such qualities as to endow the body of this world with a living soul, and to bring this young child, humanity, to the stage of adulthood.
So far as ye are able, ignite a candle of love in every meeting, and with tenderness rejoice and cheer ye every heart.
Care for the stranger as for one of your own.
Show to alien souls the same loving kindness you bestow upon your faithful friends.
Should any come to blows with you, seek you to be friends with him.
Should any stab you to the heart, be ye a healing salve to his sores.
Should any taunt and mock at you, meet him with love.
Should any heap his blame upon you, praise ye him. That's hard.
Should he offer you a deadly poison, give him the choicest honey in exchange.
And should he threaten your life, grant him a remedy that will heal him evermore.
Should he be pain itself, be ye his medicine. Should he be thorns, be ye his roses and sweet herbs.
Perchance, such ways and words from you will make his darksome world turn bright at last.
Such is the essence of God's admonitions, and such in sum are the teachings for the dispensation of Baha. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your graciousness.